No, one thing I seen in your book in the Amazons, it shows that I clearly seen that women are in charge, right, and men mostly just there to have the kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wild flip of reality of how we are. What made you write like that? Hello, everyone. We are live. You are here at Zenroku Podcast with the one and only Michael Yerby, and I'm here with a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready because today our guest is not your typical poet. Most writers follow the rules. He tossed them out the window. He fired his editors, ditched traditional storytelling, and wrote an epic adventure in rhymes. And guess what? He's pulling it off. Peter Gunn is a veteran who spent over 20 years in the Air Force as a maintainer, but instead of just telling war stories, he's telling fantasy stories and doing it in a way that nobody else is. His book, The Amazon, is an epic fantasy poem for civilizations of warrior women hidden deep inside the Amazon jungle. For somebody like myself who needs a glass of water right now just thinking about that. But this isn't just a wild adventure. It's a deep theme of power, survival, but flip society on its head. Peter is bringing something fresh and bold and utterly different to the table. So whatever, and without further ado, let's welcome the one and only Peter Gunn.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem. Yeah, man. Happy to have you, fellow maintainer, fellow Air Force veteran. Yo, it is amazing. So, Peter, for everyone, I know I gave a nice little short introduction, but who are you?
Well, I'm an Air Force veteran, bodybuilder, poet, and author. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what got you into doing poetry?
Well, after I retired, I should say close to retirement, I started taking creative writing classes, and was asked to then, get into poetry. And I've always loved it, especially when it rhymed just right. It was like music to the ears, or a song, the same thing. Even if you hear a song in a different language that isn't quite right, your ears know it and you hear it. The flow is off. If the flow is there, it's beautiful, And I was asked to write a poem, as was the other classes. And the teacher first accused me of plagiarism. I'm like, excuse me? Yes. I'm like, what? No, this is my own. She said, no. And I believe it was T.S. Eliot that she compared me to. Like, no, I've read this before. And I'm going to have to wait on your grades. And then it came back later in a couple of days like, okay, yeah, this is original. And then she said, okay, I have a gift and I should share it with the world.
Oh, now you have, now you have a gift.
Yes. Now I have the gift. Now that I'm not, if you find out about cheating, yes. But then that's what started it, and I've always loved poetry, especially the epics. And I have a daughter, and I wanted her to get into them too, but I went in there with a different mindset, having a daughter versus just me, myself. Mm-hmm. And I wanted something that she would enjoy, she would like. And I soon realized that all of them, or at least in poetry, you have your classics like Beowulf. You have the Iliad, the Odyssey. You have Dante's Inferno, and they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. And when they go out, the bookstore will automatically order more, But there was nothing there for the feminine. It was like completely devoid. Yes, there's love poems, but there's nothing there in the epic fantasy genre for her. And so I thought, well, has no one done it? And people have tried, but to write in poetry is very daunting. It's extremely time-consuming, and I can understand why. I mean, one of my favorite poems, like Edgar Allan Poe, the Raven, it's this music to the ears when you listen to it. It's awesome, but it's very short. And you can't help but think like, well, who is Lenore? What is Lenore? What if he had lived long enough to make a novel out of it? And so that's one of the things why I wanted to to bring something to the world and also to my daughter, and bring the feminine into epic poetry. You know, it's the fact that it doesn't exist is sort of like us saying to our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, like they're not worthy of it. So someone needs to do it, and I felt it should be done. And who better than myself? Yeah.
So after creating something like that, did your daughter have a deeper appreciation for your artwork?
Yes, she did. Yeah. I've read it to her a couple times, although I do have to skip over the spicier parts in some of the stanzas. Yes. Yeah, she's not. She's still 14. She's not in Daddy's eyes. She's not old enough for that yet.
Yeah, I got you 100%. So the other women in your life, when they read it, what did they think of it?
Well, I picked up. I first started publishing on the indie market. Okay, just to see, put your foot in the water, so to speak. And I soon picked up the name as the Spellcaster. They started calling me because everyone said my LLP poetry or writing style sounds like you're reading a spell. And it blossomed from there. And I will, to this day, I will at least once a week get emails from people telling me how much they love the story and they're in love with my writing. Yes, so I know I am impacting the world. Yes.
So with that poetry, are you trying to go into different avenues when it comes to taking your art somewhere else? Like you have a animated book and, the animation is amazing. Are you trying to take that into live animation, like an anime or a manga series?
Well,
or
if you
like
noticed, like the little snippet I sent you, the words were written, or the prologue was written in LLP, was written in poetry. And I would like to also integrate that not into the books, but also into the movies, into spoken word, into television shows as well.
That's pretty cool. That is really cool. I know a lot of people, especially online, I see what a lot of people are doing with a lot of spoken and written word is they're taking it and making it into what they call manhwas. Especially a lot of Koreans that I know, they do that as well. Or they build up a fan base before they take it to a studio and say, hey, I have a dedicated fan base for this or that I'm doing. Now we can take it to a production and, I'm a license it to you, of course, so we can make some money. So have you ever thought about doing something like that with your production?
Oh, yeah. I've gone to the big production meetings down in Miami and in California and in New York. I've flown myself in at my own expense. I've gone to talk to producer after producer after producer, and I've made myself known. Okay, and they've had their hands on my work, but it's a very dog eat dog business. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep pushing, and I'll find a niche to get into, whether I like it or not. I'll make everyone know that poetry is back.
Heck yeah. Okay. Now, I have a question. You told me, and you actually said it, you fired your editors and, throughout the usual rules for writing.
Yes.
Why was that?
I actually had about a long argument with an editor I had hired because, it's number one, it's expected in the publishing world. So I okay, fine, find my mistakes. Okay, here's my manuscript. But then we started getting into I have to use words. I believe the big argument started over the word unpurse. Now I tell you I unpurse something, you know exactly what I meant, but that isn't a word. And the editor said I can't use it, and then that's a argument ensued. And I said, no, you don't understand. And of course, even right now, myself and my director Andrea Giordani are. We're actually hiring voice actors, and we're doing a live Amazon's drama that's going to be hopefully out by July. Ooh, wow. And a lot of the actors are asking questions like, okay, why are you using this word? I have to explain to them this is poetry, so they have to learn to speak in poetry. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So was it hard writing in that way, or did it come natural to you?
Everyone has their flow state. And if you get into that flow state, sometimes it makes it easier. I will say that.
Yeah.
But there are also times when you're sitting there for an hour and you only have a paragraph done. Okay. Yeah. So it is time consuming. It is time consuming. You have to let the words write the story that you want to write. Okay. I often make it, I'll compare it to, like, you think of it like a mason, he's putting up a brick wall. Okay. But these are normal bricks. They're square. There's no surprises. And he just does his job one after another, make sure they're plumb, does the next row. Someone comes in and checks the QC. Okay. That would be the editor. And then he's done. With LLP and poetry, it's putting the right words together in the right side, and is like a natural stone wall. So everyone is an odd shape, and you have to sit there and actually sort of put it together on the ground first before you can even erect it to figure out what stone is going where. And that's what you have to do with the words. I mean, there have been plenty of times when I've written 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, but then I come to stoppage. So then I had to completely erase the prior paragraphs and start over. And not a lot of people are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's time consuming. Yes. It tries one's patience. Very much so.
How long did it take you to have that book come to fruition?
Well, the book went through, I want to say probably about 8 changes, little after little after little. And it grew into what it is right now. Okay. I initially wrote it in very loose poetry. But I wasn't happy with it because I missed my flow. I needed the flow in there. I needed to have the music, and come out of it. And so I rewrote it, and finally made it into what it is right now. And I think if you put it up against any of the other poets' work, it stands out on its own as something unique. When I initially did this, I studied every form of poetry there is out there. And I looked at its viability as to writing a long epic novel. And some of the guys have done it. I mean, Madhya Bhatta in India has done it. So, and theirs is about 1.5 million words. So it's quite large, but you tell that you put that sort of thing into a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha person, so a younger person, they're not going to want to read it.
Yeah.
They can't correlate to it. They don't want to even look at it. I needed something not only that I could write in poetry, but something that the new generation would latch onto. That's why I said it in a somewhat newer standard in the 1890s, okay, where they could understand the concepts about a queen, about a boat, and pirates and things like that.
And see, honestly, I think with this new generation, a lot of kids, give them credit, they know a lot. I think their attention span is just not there.
That's why I made it. That's why I made it into smaller stanzas, so they're not going to have to read a big chapter. It's easy, more digestible bits for them to read. It's only about 50,000 words, so that's the first book. That is. There's going to be 2 more at least, and I'm working on the second right now.
So how extensive is your fan base?
In India, I had about 16,000 people that were following me. Yeah. I'm still trying to... Yeah, but that's other parts of the world, okay? So I'm still trying to break out in the USA because, it's difficult to get books in front of people that are especially different, in poetry. Yeah.
Understandable. Did you ever feel like quitting because it was too hard, the challenges got to you?
If you're following your heart, you won't quit. So if this is your passion, this is what you were meant to do. If you're following your heart, you're not going to quit. Yeah. It's only when you're not following your heart, then yes, you'll quit. So it has to be in your heart if you're going to do it.
One thing I seen in your book, in the Amazons, it shows that, I clearly seen that women are in charge, right? And men mostly just there to have the kids. That's a wild flip of, reality of how we are. What made you write like that?
Well, I think it's appealing to women that are fed up with men, number one. Okay. And we all know that they are. We all know that they are. They want to go someplace where they're in charge.
Yeah.
Okay. But also to put keep men in check. Like, wait a minute, what if women have the strength? What if women were in charge? Okay. There are plenty of times where Jack, in the story says he feels like his like he's nothing compared to them because he is. Yeah. But he proves his worth with his mentality. Yeah.
So do you think a world run by a woman would be better, worse, or just different?
Well, if you read the story and you understand it, it's the same. Okay.
Sure.
You have different factions all arguing about stuff, and it's difficult to get them to come together. And the person in charge, the queen of the Amazons, is constantly struggling to get them to be nice and behave. Just like, I guess you could say, our current president.
True. Oh, so with that, what you said with the queen, she seems very strong, like she's always ready to face challenges. What inspired her character, or who?
I would have to say a lot of the military females that I worked around inspired her. She's a combination of just about all of them. I remember once working around a female crew chief, and she said she was pushing in her box. She was like covered in oil. She was just completely dirty. And she was pissed off. She said, I would have to work twice as hard just to get the same amount of credit. And that stuck with me. That bothered me, that if my daughter joined someday, or any female joined someday, she would have to go through that. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah. No, 100%. You're right. Chief Ryan, she was the old CFM, and she came to Barksdale. And I knew Chief Ryan when I was at Minot Air Force Base. I was new in the Air Force. I think she was a senior. She became a staff, and she trained me basically how to use a multimeter. She was E&E. And she trained me how to use a multimeter. And, she was old, like kind of old crusty type, young. And you could tell she was raised by the OGs, right? Because
Yes.
she was like, she's like, I'm tired of you calling me out to use multimeter to ohm stuff out. Come here. And she showed me how to use the multimeter. And she taught me basically the basics when it comes to schematics. So, and I took that with me. And then when I seen her, I was like, ma'am, I'm not sure if you remember me and stuff like this. And when I said that to her, I don't know if she got embarrassed. But that's something that stuck with me. And I never, I guess being in maintenance, maintenance is maintenance, right? But I never thought of women in maintenance like Chief Ryan, Sheena Hansen, Wendy Hajic. Like, these are the women that trained me at Minot Air Force Base, old school way. And I thank them because I learned so much from them. And so, yeah, I do get you. I understand that. So with the book, what type of message are you sending about power in the real world?
No matter who possesses it, it's still going to be a contention. Okay. And it's up to us to make sure it gets in the right hands.
I feel you on that one. Your book tackles a lot of stuff, like, of course, in the Amazon, you got the giant snakes, the secret cities, like all that wild stuff. What made you think of that? Is that just because of the Amazon, or did you just want to add that to it because it was the allure?
Well, it actually started back now. It's going to be further on in the series, but the hero in the story, his father, Jack Sr., actually discovered, because he was a cartographer, he was a map maker, okay? He discovered a map on an ancient scroll written by Herodotus, because Herodotus was the first one that wrote about the Amazons in 425 BC, okay? And he discovered a map on that scroll, and that's what started the whole thing. The initial push into the Amazon. Now, this was about in 1806. So the Napoleonic War was going on. Whether they want to admit it or not, because a lot of historians would be in contention about it, the British were bankrupt, okay? And they were looking for money. And this was, this scroll told of gold. So they were sent there to go look for some.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, if you can change this, I know you're doing production on it, but if you can make a movie, a legitimate movie off this, who would play the queen?
Well, I would want it to be correct. So, the Queen Ivy is over 10 foot tall. So we would probably have to use a lot of CGI. It would be difficult to pull it off. I don't know, how we would do it exactly as a rather, traditional movie.
So did you base this on real life and real history, or is it just a mostly imaginary?
It's both. I like to do what I call it pulling a Dan Brown. You ever read any of his books? He mixes both.
Mm-hmm.
So it means you're questioning at the end, like, was this real? Was this fake? Yeah, and I do both because Panama Canal contention was going on just at that time, and the Napoleonic War was going on at that time. So there's real history in there. I actually add a little dabs of knowledge about the Amazon as well. Yeah.
Wow. So I know. I'm trying to get into writing. I'm trying to write a full-length book for myself. And I know writers sometimes they put themselves in their stories. So what part of the story would you say most relates to your journey and your walk?
You mean what? You mean like what character I can relate to? Well, I see myself a little bit in all of them, really, in honesty. But I also put people I've worked around in a lot of them, too.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, because we've all had that, because being in the military, that person that, should we say, always liked to drink a little too much, and always got in trouble. So that would be Captain Horn, and there was that person that was always like a whiz at fixing stuff, and it just seemed to come natural to them, and so that would be Mr. Robbins. So there was a lot of my military career in that book, in the people, at least in the humans. That is, yeah.
So question. So is that, with that said, did you ever feel like an outsider, like the explorers felt in the book that you wrote? Like,
I've always been an outsider. If you know what a Sigma male is, that psychological type, I'm a Sigma male. Okay. I piss off alphas. And there are a lot of alphas in the Air Force, and I have a knack for pissing them off because I won't follow or listen to what they say. Yeah.
So question, what did your writing teach you about yourself?
That I'm capable of more than I actually thought I am. Yeah. But the thing is, it's a step, like, okay, I got that done, but now what's next? And then what's next after that? And what's next after that? So you have to come into your own. And one thing I've done is I love drawing, you've seen some of the artwork, but as you step into entrepreneurship, which I'm sure you will after you retire, number one is the people you are friends with now don't necessarily expect them to come with you. If you're going to grow intellectually, spiritually, mentally, whatever it may be, they're not necessarily going to. So you might have to surpass them. You might have to say bye. And a lot of veterans are willing to do that, but you might have to. Yeah.
And that's what I'm coming to. I'm actually doing that more with my family. I like to be close with my family, but a lot of times I see what I think about and what I'm having a passion for. It's not necessarily their passion, or they don't care for it, and it's not in a negative way. It's just, it is what it is, right? So I guess. So it's just one of those things that I have to get used to. But I know, especially when entrepreneurship, I've seen it firsthand, how people are, it's like really, like you said earlier, cutthroat. Like the business is quite intense and crazy.
Yeah. So,
man, I guess you do have to have, like you said, a passion for it the way you do. So what inspired this passion for writing? Is because you was out and you're like, man, I got all this free time, or, like what, like the way you talk about poetry is something I would say I talk about when it comes to anime. I love anime. I get excited, and I can see it in you. You get excited talking about poetry. So where did this love for poetry really come from?
It sinks to my heart. I feel it in my heart, and I feel drawn to it. Like I am supposed to be doing this, And I talk to a lot of young people about this too, and I'll go to talk to book events and book signings, stuff like that. And I'm always telling them to follow their heart. Okay, that's what you really need to do to be happy. Okay, did you ever have that time in your life when time just flew by and you didn't realize it, and you were probably doing something you're passionate about, weren't you? That's a sign. That's the God telling you, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. So pay attention to that, and then use your brain then to figure out how to make money at it. Okay? There's a young girl on Instagram that I thought it was quite genius. She loved painting, but of course, there's so many painters out there. But what she wound up doing is she used her brain. She now goes to people's houses and paints their dogs. Mm-hmm. And she does what you loves to do, and she's making a lot of money at it. Yeah.
That's actually very smart. That is
people love their dogs so much they will spend any amount of money on them. Yeah.
That is true. That is true. I see it. Like, we can't have a dog in our house. My wife is severely allergic to dogs and cats. So I grew up with dogs. So it's kind of like, we have a little girl. So it's kind of sad because it's like, we can't have a dog. And when she see dogs and stuff, she be like, doggy. And then my wife like, yep. Yep, keep on walking. So it's funny. It's funny. Oh, my goodness. So did you plan to like rhyme ahead of time, or did it just flow to you for all this?
Tend to, like, I'll meditate and go to a flow state. And then if I'm there, if I can keep myself there, it will just come to me. And then the words will come to me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll be rhyming for 15 minutes, half an hour. And then all of a sudden, I'll write on my phone a lot. And then all of a sudden I'll have like a good beginning of a story or the next chapter written. And sometimes it's difficult to get out of it, and I'll take a phone call and talk and rhyme without inadvertently, and I don't realize it. Yes.
So question: what is for the viewers? What is a flow state? How do you describe it?
It's so we say an alignment with the universe around you. You're conscious, but you're aware of your body, but you're also aware of the other world. Okay. Let's just say that. Yes.
Okay. So you said you're coming out with 2 more books. This is going to be a trilogy?
Yes.
Okay. So do you see this book becoming an audiobook anytime soon?
Yes, definitely. We have now my director, Andrea, she did the original audiobook, but we're redoing it now into a live drama. So it's sort of like the dramas you listen to on the radio. Mm-hmm. We're hiring a lot of voice actors. We have 26 to hire, and so far we got 3. So we're still in work. But, knock on wood, we'll get all the roles filled, and we're going to upgrade it into a live drama. Just like when you listen to it on the radio. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So I guess I'm not sure if you can reveal this information. So are you going to shop it around, or do you already have a deal with a distributor, a production company?
Well, when you write and you get handed these contracts, I've been offered $40,000 before. But then when you start reading the fine print, okay, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you own me. And I don't know if you went to my website. I have a lot of other things, too, going on, okay? Not just the Amazons. And in the contract, if I was to sign some of these things, not only would they own the Amazons, they would own everything. So, yeah, you got to read the fine print. You got to read the fine print. Yeah.
Okay. If people could take away one thing from your book and everything that you're doing, what would it be?
Be kind to each other. Do no harm to each other. Yeah. Hurt people, hurt others. Let's just say that. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. No, 100%. And that does happen. So with the state of, our state of America, everything that's happening when it comes to Ukraine, Russia, everything that happened with Palestine and Israel, and then now you got China kind of like flexing itself. Is this all the stuff that's happening in the world, is it going to make its way inside your books?
Well, I think writers inadvertently put things like that in there without realizing it. Okay. Whether they have stuff going on at home, it will come out of the writings. Whether there's stuff going around in politics around them that's affecting their community, it will inadvertently wind up in there. But I want a place where people could go and forget about what's going on and, and just enjoy reading the book.
Hey, that's pretty cool. So before we wrap up, I like to ask this question, and maybe you can give me some context to it. The question is, who are your 5 GOAT poets, if you had to say?
Well, Edgar Allan Poe, I would have to say. Yeah. T.S. Eliot, I like him. Robert Frost. Yeah. I like now, I consider the Iliad, the Odyssey, so Homer, okay, poetry. Some people don't, but I do. Yeah. So I would say Homer. And no one else really stood out to me or like, wow, that's really good, though. There are good poets. I mean, there are a lot of good poets, that can rhyme. But ones that have stick-to-itiveness, ones that can write more than a paragraph, ones that can write a novel, are rare. But, that I would have to say that's my top 4 right there.
Okay. And I do remember you saying earlier how some people that you work with while you was in the military became like characters or pieces in your book. What places have you been while you was in the military?
Okay. Like places I've been stationed or just
Places been stationed.
I was stationed at Luke first, and then I got moved to the Thunderbirds at Nellis.
Wow.
And then, and that's a lot of traveling. I mean, we saw all the states and Europe and South America, Korea, Japan. It's quite the schedule. Like when you're on that team, there were several instances when I woke up and I wasn't drunk. I woke up and I forgot where I was and didn't realize because you're moving all the time. Yeah. But I got to see most of the world doing that. I mean, honestly. And then after that, I went to Italy and stayed there. I was at Aviano for a while, and then I came to South Carolina, and then I settled down here, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you stayed mostly in the fighter realm when it came to... Okay.
Well, if you look at a map of where all these aircraft are stationed, okay, fighters are in the best places.
It is.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. So why not be on a fighter?
No, trust me. I'm trying to go back to fighters. I'm on it heavy right now, and I wasn't even supposed to come to this space. I'm making the best of it, but I'm trying to get back to the fighter world. I miss it. I tell people all the time who never experienced it. It is fast paced and it's pretty cool. And I would tell people who going from fighters to heavies that it is a lot slower, but that doesn't mean it's easier. I guess if that makes sense. So yeah, 100%. Very true, very true. So, like, most of the people that are your characters, were they just E&E troops or different specialties that you've seen and influenced the way that you write today?
Like I said before, I take a lot of the people I worked around and put them into the book. But I wouldn't say there was any one specific that I modeled the characters after. I wanted it to be an homage to everyone, really. And I wanted them to be their own, stand on their own. Yeah, be their own people, so to speak.
Okay. So before we end this, I would like to give the mic to you, and you tell everybody what you got going on.
Okay. Well, feel free to step on my website, Peter Gunn, www.petergunn.net. You can check out all my stuff I have going on there. I have, like I said, we're doing the live audiobook right now, so that should be hopefully done in the summer around July. Also, I have a graphic novel called Sigma Squad, Hunting the Deep State, that's going to, shall we say, be quite taboo. I mean, we could probably do a different episode just about that. If you saw it, yeah. And it's going to take on a lot of things like pedophilia, Satanism, human trafficking, and bring it into the mainstream.
Wow.
So, and that should be coming out in July as well.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for your time. I appreciate you. Guys, man, go get his books, read them, man. It is a dream. He gave me basically a snippet of what he got. So I'm going to go through. I went through a little bit just so I can be prepared for the interview, but I'm going to go through and enjoy. I love content. I love words. I used to try to be a rapper, and then I couldn't do it well. So I just enjoyed the people
check
who
out the songs I wrote for the Sigma Squad on the website.
Yep, I plan on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to get immersed into it, and I would love to have you back. So thank you guys for showing up. This is Zenroku Podcast Network. Michael Yerby, your host. Peter Gunn, the legendary, the new poet. You didn't even know it. All right, talk to you guys later. Peace.